Joining me now, Peter Baker, chief White House correspondent for the New York Times and an MSNBC political analyst. Tara Setmayer is a former Republican communications director. But we begin with NBC's business and data correspondent, Brian Cheung. Brian.
Hey there, Chris. These tariffs are going to be targeting our neighbors to the north and south with a very substantial tariff of 25%. That took effect at midnight, in addition to an additional 10% tariff on China. This is going to cover many different types of goods. For example, fruits and vegetables that come in from Mexico. We also get a lot of produce from Canada as well in the form of potatoes and also grain. But you have to remember that steel and aluminum are part of this as well. This is a really, really big deal when it comes to the economic relationship between the United States and our neighbors to the north and south, specifically when it comes to the automotive industry. We import so many parts from Mexico and then assemble so many cars in Canada, which means that in some cases you have the same vehicle that might be sold in the United States that gets tariffed multiple times. That's the reason why you have some groups like the Anderson Economic Group that is projecting that in some cases some vehicles can get as much as $10,000 more expensive as a result of these tariffs. We've already heard some retail companies opine on the tariffs this morning. The likes of Target and also Best Buy chiming in on this. Best Buy saying that, quote, our entire assortment will pass along some level of tariff costs to retailers, making price increases for American consumers, quote, highly likely. And then Target saying in their fourth quarter earnings that if there's a 25% tariff, those prices will go up. So these are coming to stores near you, really kind of underscoring the reaction on the Wall Street as well, which has reacted negatively to the announcement of these tariffs. But we'll have to see. As we know, the president has promised even higher tariffs on the campaign trail. Could this be the beginning of this trade war, which is only just in the early stages? We'll have to see. Back to you, Chris.
Thanks so much, Peter. Thanks so much, Brian. Peter, stock market tanking, threat of even higher prices. I mean, and all of this, obviously, as the president has a pretty big speech tonight, with the idea of telling the citizens of America that things are getting better. Talk about what you're seeing and the challenge now facing Donald Trump, which seems to be moving by the minute.
Yeah, there seems to be a conflict here between Trump priorities, right? He's always talking about tariffs. Tariffs is an instrument of power that he likes to wield, in part because he can do it himself without needing Congress, right? He has the complete flexibility, at least as the law is currently being interpreted, to impose these tariffs on neighbors to influence their policy. But he's saying he's doing this in order to stem the flow of fentanyl. Because fentanyl deaths are on the rise. In fact, they're on the decline. They've been actually going down substantially in the last year, so about 24% down last year compared to the year before. And very little of it actually comes over the border from Canada. And yet Canada, our largest trading partner, is the one that he is focused on along with Mexico and China. And I think that it's in conflict with his promise to lower prices. He says, well, the foreign governments pay the tariffs. That's obviously just not true. And we'll see whether this continues to have an impact. The stock market is important because it's one thing he pays attention to. It's a metric that matters to him. He likes to brag about stock markets going up. So far, if you've been in the markets during the 6 weeks he's been in office, you've lost money.
So, Tara, on this issue of tackling inflation, which we know was a key promise for a lot of folks, there's a comment by Trump's agriculture secretary that is really catching fire. She was asked about how Americans should cope with higher egg prices.
I think the silver lining in all of this is how do we, in our backyards, we've got chickens too in our backyard, how do we solve for something like this? And people are sort of looking around thinking, wow, well, maybe I could get a chicken in my backyard.
You're a communications expert. What is a Republican member of Congress supposed to do with that?
Yeah, this is problematic. Republican members of Congress are already feeling the heat from a lot of their constituents because the DOGE cuts, the indiscriminate decapitation of a lot of our federal agencies here, is impacting everyone across the board. It's not just the owning the libs that a lot of MAGAs thought that they were getting by supporting Donald Trump. Republican lawmakers have to answer for what's happening in their own communities, and farmers, agriculture, veterans, all of these things are being impacted by this. And the price of eggs was the signature catchphrase for the election. But the price of eggs, well, according to Trump's own USDA, egg prices are going to go up possibly to 40% more for the rest of the year. And that is something that I think could have been, if what's going on could be handled better. they would need to explain to the American people, well, why are egg prices at 40% higher now? You promised us you would bring the cost of everyday goods down. This tariff war does not do that either. I think the Republicans are going to have to explain to the American people why Donald Trump's actions so far in his few weeks that he's been in office, how has that improved their lives? It hasn't. And no matter what they keep saying, they're trying to gaslight the American people into believing that everything's better. This is much better. You're going to have to go through some pain, but it'll be better eventually. I don't think that's what the American people voted for. They didn't hear about that some pain part first in order to get this magical, better economic situation when the economic situation was actually pretty good under Joe Biden. But a lot of the American people didn't feel it. They're feeling it right now. And at his joint address tonight, to Congress and to the American people, it's going to be very difficult to try to tell the American people they're not feeling what they're feeling or seeing what they're seeing when it comes to the stock market and the prices of everyday goods. Tariffs don't work.
One suggestion we've heard, Tara, is that, well, this is Joe Biden. You know, we inherited Joe Biden's economy. We're still working on getting out of it, in spite of the fact that he said he was going to bring prices down on day one. But how do you message that in a convincing way tonight?
Well, I think that's the challenge. I mean, Donald Trump is very good at repeating things over and over again, whether they're true or they're not. He can try to continue to blame Joe Biden, his predecessor, for the mess that we're in now. But frankly, Joe Biden left Donald Trump with a very good economy and an excellent stock market, and people's 401ks and the prices of eggs were actually lower than they are right now. So, you know, this is, I think that what they're going to do is they're going to say that we need to do this in order to assert, American first priorities. But again, it's going to be difficult for them because it doesn't make sense. Tariffs are a tax on the American consumer. The American consumer pays the tariff, not the foreign country. And so it'll be interesting to see how Republicans message this when they know deep down inside that this is not a good idea to go and get into a trade war with our friends in the North and in the South, who we rely on and who have been reliable, good partners for the United States economically.
Peter, the CEO of Target and Brian Cheung touched on Target, but he issued a warning today. Let me play that.
We'll try to protect pricing, but the consumer will likely see price increases over the next couple of days.
The next couple of days, Peter. The Wall Street Journal also ran an op-ed by Michigan Senator Gary Peter. He warned that prices for some vehicles, again, will rise as much as $10,000. Obviously, that's the heart of car manufacturing in the United States. What are the chances any of this has an impact on how Donald Trump thinks and talks about tariffs?
Well, I mean, look, it could be a short-term thing. You never know with Donald Trump, right? He has a habit of taking drastic actions like this and then reversing himself within a few days because he has some sort of, modest concessions he can point to and claim victory and go home if he decides this is just too damaging. So we don't really know. He's an unpredictable character in that sense. But if it were to go on for a long time, if this were to, in fact, have a more enduring impact on the economy, I think then you're going to start seeing Republicans starting to speak out because they understand that the economy is crucial to their reelection chances in a year and a half when they're facing voters at the midterms. And, the one thing that Trump really has had going for him politically over the years was the perception that he was, a presider over a good economy. He likes to say the best economy in history. That's not true, obviously. He's taken more credit for the economy than it really has, in terms of his actual quality, but it is central to his political identity. And if that begins to shake, then a lot of these other things, the fear, I think, on the part of Republicans is it could fray the overall standing for the party.